Right, let's start in Pretoria, where the ANC will be launching its election manifesto today. Only 500 members are expected to attend due to COVID-19 safety measures. It comes at a time where the party is trying to change its status quo. Its financial woes mean it's been unable to pay staff for 3 months, even as it's spending money on campaigning. The ANC also wants South Africans to trust it when it comes to ultimately service delivery. eNCA's Manqoba Mchunu is in Pretoria for us. Manqoba, what's been happening there? Is it all systems go for 5 p.m.?
Well, certainly, Clement, it's all systems go here in Pretoria in Church Square, where we're expecting that manifesto launch to start in about an hour's time from now. And I can tell you, Clement, that we've seen quite a number of supporters arriving, not quite the usual numbers that you'll expect to see, of course, during such a manifesto launch that is held by the ruling party. But of course, we are in different times. We are under COVID-19 and under level 2 of those lockdown restrictions. So the security here is very tight in terms of who can come in and who can come out of this particular facility. I can tell you that, the people that are only allowed here are people that have been accredited, and we do understand that they're going to be sticking to that 500 of people that are allowed to gather outside for alert level 2 of the COVID-19 regulations. But I'm just going to move out of shot just to show you here what's happening around here. We're seeing, of course, the marshals getting ready to usher in the different people, and I can tell you right now that the people that are coming in here, nobody's been allowed at this particular point to get into the venue. They'll be ushered in at a certain time closer to when that event will start. This is just to ensure that they stick to those COVID-19 regulations so that this event doesn't really become a super spreader for COVID-19. So we are expecting, of course, throngs of them to arrive and to hear exactly what the ANC president will have to say about service delivery. Perhaps let me see if I can speak to one of the supporters. Yes, Swami, of course, you are here to listen to the president today. You're an ANC member. Yeah. What are some of your expectations from the president's speech?
I'm expecting a lot, especially in terms of the local government elections, especially here in Tshwane, because 5 years ago we had a problem. This year, as an ANC, we do not want the same thing. So I want to listen to the manifesto and see how we're going to put it, and then go back to the community, speak to the community, and go forward with this thing and win this election on the 1st of March.
And you recall, Sifamuti, one of the issues in 2016 is that many of the ANC voters were simply unhappy and didn't go to the polls. So are you saying this time around you're willing to listen to what the ANC will say and that you go and vote in the polls this year?
Yes, we're willing to listen. 5 years was hard under that coalition leadership of the other people. So we do not want that repetition. We want the ruling party to rule this time, especially this capital city of South Africa. So we are going to listen to that. We are going to vote. We are going to encourage our peers and community to vote for the ANC. All wards must be voted by the ANC.
And in terms of service delivery, this has been an issue here in Tshwane. We've seen quite a number of protests here in Tshwane over service delivery issues. Are these some of the issues that you want the president to address in particular as well?
We want the president to address the service delivery issues, in particular the water issue and the electricity issue, blah, blah, blah. All those basic things, it must be addressed. And over and above that, the ANC 5 years ago used to do things better. But these 5 years that we've been experiencing from 2016 till now, it was bad, hence the protest. But then we believe that from the 1st of November 2020, going forward, all will be back to normal.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that was just one of the sentiments from one of the supporters that is here to listen, of course, to the ANC's manifesto launch and to hear what the president will say. But some of the things that we'll be obviously expecting to hear from the president is how the party plans to accelerate service delivery. There has been quite a number of issues in a number of municipalities. We do know that many of the municipalities under the ANC have been placed under administration. I think 40 of them to be exact around the country. So those are some of the issues that most of the people will be expecting to hear, how the ANC is going to be doing things differently this time around in terms of those municipalities, and whether or not, this is a party that people can trust going into this election. So many of the people very optimistic to hear what will be said by the president today.
All right, Manqoba, thanks. Let's move over to our reporter Aviwe Mtila, who's also in Pretoria for us ahead of the launch of that manifesto at 5 p.m. Aviwe, you've been speaking to some of the leaders of the ANC. Manqoba just spoke to a member of the ANC who says 5 years ago the party was doing things better, but the last 5 years things haven't been so rosy. So the ANC has a tough job in convincing South Africans why it's the party they should be voting for on the 1st of November.
That's the exact debacle here, as the party is focusing on reclaiming the Tshwane Metro. Top of the agenda, as the manifesto launch is expected to start at 5 p.m. Of course, you remember back in 2016, they got a bloody nose in Tshwane as they lost it to unprecedented times of coalition government. The DA then ran the municipality here with coalition parties. Of course, this was partly because of the infighting, political infighting within the African National Congress. You remember at the time there were divisions between the mayoral candidate Manqoba as well as the regional deputy at that time, the late regional deputy. Compromise candidate was introduced in Togo Diza, which the electorate vote on the ground rejected outright, where we saw protests in 2016. Also, voters stayed away, which led to a bloody nose of the ANC, not only in this particular metro, but other metros as well, because of poor service delivery. I'm joining now the Utakota Lukhota from communications of the party. Thank you for joining us at eNCA. But over the years, we've seen a decline in your voter, leading to coalition governance, lack of water, sanitation, just basic needs of service delivery lacking on the ground. But we're expecting, of course, promises to do better. Yeah, why should the voter on the ground believe that when we've seen lack of service delivery for decades now?
Look, let me put it very clear from the side of the African National Congress. We are the first one to acknowledge that in some instances we have had problems. But it's not totally true that South Africans' life has not improved. You know that when we took over, electricity provision in the country was at 47%. We're now at over 90%. You know, water reticulation in terms of potable water, it was less than 50%. We're now at over 87%. You'd know that the housing backlog in the country was very huge. We have now over 3.5 million to 4 million houses that we have built, which houses over 15 million people. You'd know that kids who never had a break or water at school, over 9 million of them are on a school nutrition program. So even in Tshwane, the municipality was stable during the era of the ANC. You'd know. But since the coalition government took over, there were problems after problems. We have had 4 mayors in this particular city. We have had serious challenges. Even now, you can see for yourself, the challenges have compounded. And I think the only better way and the better thing that we can do is to get an organization like the ANC that is able to acknowledge its mistake and willing to self-correct to the best interest of the voter.
The Soweto residents would beg to differ with you, given their electricity woes. Residents, I'm sure, in the Free State, with their water and sanitation challenges, will beg to differ with you. What are you going to do differently for the electorate on the ground?
Look, we've made our commitment very clear from the NEC Lekgotla. Part of the report that you are going to be presented with today by the President in terms of a manifesto answers some of those particular things. In the first instance, we have identified that corruption in some of our institutions, it's a problem. We are going to deal tough with corruption as the African National Congress. Secondly, is that we have realized that because of skills gap, which is there in some of our deployees, we have made it a point that those who are going to be part of the executives in our municipalities, part of the administration, must be people with the relevant skills for the relevant job. That we are going to emphasize. Thirdly, is that we are going to embark on a huge infrastructure drive throughout the country, as well as huge investor drive. That is going to assist us in terms of the economic growth, which is going to help us to create more jobs for women and youth, because according to stats, those are the biggest sectors which are affected by unemployment in our country. These are some of the things that we're going to do differently, and amongst other things that we're going to do differently is to bring ethical public service to the municipalities, because so far through Public Service and Administration Department, those ethical standards for public servants in the province and nationals are going to be done. Through SALGA and Portfolio Committee of COCTA, we will be finalizing the ones for municipalities in due course. after this particular election. So we are serious about changing the complexion and the face of how municipalities are run in our country. But others in administration must know heads are going to roll. We no longer take prisoners of wrongdoing.
Why should then the electorate believe this or the promises that will be made here, given that the party has failed to pay its own employees for at least 3 months now?
Look, the voters must understand the issue of what is happening in terms of salaries of our staff members. It's a matter that is receiving attention. So far, there are those who have been paid and just few left who are working on that particular number. But equally, the public must know we have to comply with the law. We are required by the new Public Political Party Funding Act to declare our donors, and donors can only donate up to 100,000 rand, or they must declare above that one. Others, there is donor fatigue, and so on and so forth. And that's why as the ANC, we are approaching Parliament so that we get the taxpayer to can fund our democracy, so that our democracy, just like elsewhere in the world, it must be funded by a taxpayer, so that we don't point a finger at any political party on issues of corruption or collusion on tenders. That is what we are working on. And we are confident as the African National Congress on what our president is going to table today. His Excellency, President, Commander-in-Chief, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, will be presenting our manifesto to the whole nation in terms of where to from now. But what is going to happen, we can be rest assured, we are going to push a different ANC, different municipalities. So the voter must be confident that the African National Congress is still there to ensure that their interests are kept high and are kept serious and at the center of the agenda.
Lastly, I must ask about the video that we've seen circulate of the Treasurer General Paul Mashatile giving congregants money. Surely this is seen as enticing the congregants to vote for the party.
Look, according to the briefing that we have received on the team that was with the TG, is that they were in a church, in a congregation, and there was a period for a tithe, an offering. So the TG of the ANC was giving a tithe to the church.
To individual congregants?
Look, I don't know the protocol of that church. I can't answer on their behalf, but that was the tithe. It was an offering, what the Treasurer General was doing. It was not even to the voters, as it's alleged. It was to a congregant because he went to a church for a prayer service. And at a period when a tithe came and an offering, our TG gave out the little he has under the circumstances.
Okay, thank you very much. Dakota Lekota, part of the communications team of the African National Congress, just ahead of the launch of the manifesto here as they head to the local government elections. In fact, this issue of Paul Mashatile, one of the top 6 members and also the Treasurer General of the party, giving congregants money, is an issue that we touched on earlier with the IEC. I just want you to take a listen to that and their response.
In terms of the law, handing out of gifts or those type of things are not outlawed unless they are deemed to constitute an illicit inducement. In other words, that I give you something in return of you altering your voting behavior. If they are not intended to do that, there is nothing that outlaws them in a scheme of electoral law. The electoral scheme provides for a certain number of things, because in a democracy, an election is a moment for citizens to select their preferred representative from varied competing policy propositions. It follows, therefore, that anything that happens during the campaign period should be tolerant, it promotes tolerance, but does not result in undue influence or an exertion of undue force in order to compel a voter to change their voting behavior. If there is something, if it is alleged that that thing was intended to alter the behavior of the voters, then that may attract the provisions of the electoral code.
So, Aviwe, it looks like things are getting off to a slow start there. Are we expecting them to start at 5 p.m. exactly? And when can we expect the president to speak? Is it going to be a little later on, 7 p.m., 6:30 p.m.? What are we expecting?
A little later on, President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to address the delegation here of no less than 500 supporters heading to those local government elections. We've been told that the processions should be starting at 5 p.m. with votes, with messages from the alliance partners, the ANC Youth League, and then the president then will give the keynote address. You can expect him to speak about the 25% of those nearly 10,000 candidates being from the youth. In fact, mentioning that 46% of those nearly 10,000 candidates are actually women. You can expect President Cyril Ramaphosa to speak about how differently they are expected to do things this time around, mentioning how their mayoral candidates will be interviewed, going through a vetting process, and in fact submit lifestyle audits. We saw that happen with the first mayor that has been through those interviews, being the late Jolly D. Matango, as he became the mayor of Johannesburg. You can expect him to mention how the communities are now involved when it comes to the selection of their own councillors. In fact, community meetings that have been happening to nominate their own councillors. But promises then, Clement, of doing things differently, providing those service delivery issues, water, sanitations, that has been plaguing many communities around the country, Clement. So you can expect the promises of just doing better by President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to address this delegation here at around 7 p.m.
All right, Aviwe, Mtila and Manqoba Mchunu live to us from Pretoria ahead of the ANC's manifesto launch in about 40 minutes time or so. Still to